Yes, awesome. Hi, good evening, guys. Thank you for being here. I'll quickly jump into the core thing that we are here to discuss, which is the micro themes for the essay 2026 paper for those of you who are going to write mains. And those of you who are beginners and who are trying to understand what has changed in UPSC, what does a 2027 or 8 attempt looks like, this session will give you the highest uh, I would say the highest view of how dramatically and how beautifully UPSC has changed. So the thing I'm going to do in this session is that we'll take you through one paper, one whole 2025 paper, and we'll discuss these things, the PYQs and the tensions inherent. So these are the tensions which are your micro theme, which I'll be teaching in the classes that start from 10th of this month, the June. And to teach these core tensions, which I call the micro themes for essay, we will have to know these sub tensions, because tensions by the very, the name, have a lot of dimension. So तमीज से पढ़ेंगे, आराम से पढ़ेंगे, but the whole point is to get you interested and in tune with this new changing dynamics जो UPSC का हुआ है, right? So for that we keep trying things. How many of you guys, by the way, have joined online from Later in Spirit? And how many of you are part of the essay course already, the Smash essay or the Smash Mains course? Just a show of hands, yes, no would do. On the YouTube, जो भी हैं alive and who have attended any of my session, just a hi or a yes, no would do. Cool. So the thing is that I have to make you believe that almost all the topics of UPSC essays right from 2021 till 2025 have been about how do you grapple with a tension which pulls you into opposite ends. Okay? And not just that, if you are even slightly interested in philosophy, how does it happen कि एक philosopher बुद्धा ने कुछ बोला जो तुम्हारे को उसकी contradictions दिख जाएंगी अपने मन में. अब तुम articulate कर पाओ ना कर पाओ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, but let's say you read something in the Western philosophy, you read Nietzsche, and that will contradict Buddha, or so it seems. And then, some other person will come. Maybe Rumi will come with another line. Maybe Ghalib will come with a quote. And if you sit down with a good teacher or with a good book, and if you start reading these bites of philosophies, you will see how beautifully these tensions, either they get resolved or they get complicated, or they are paradoxes which you cannot solve. And overall, it's a nice intellectual exercise. And I'll prove it to you that that's exactly how things are happening in the UPSC essay. But before that, I'll take a detour and we'll keep coming back to this thing. This is a simple, WhatsApp ka gif jo aata hai, zindagi hi dard hai, dard hi zindagi. And we'll tell you, we'll see how this paradox will it reverberates across the eras of philosophers and thinkers and leaders and whatnot. So this is just a representation of what if these all philosophers were in WhatsApp group. And I think most of you guys who have PSIR or who have philosophy as your optional, even I think maybe sociology as your optional, you would be aware of few of these guys in their different contexts. Okay? I assume no context, by the way, so I'm going to anyway go through it. But bhulna mat, the aim is to convince you that you need to think in tensions. If you're not doing that for the essay paper or even for the ethics paper, and you're reading or studying from any other institute, from any person, चाहे किसने पहले सर्विस निकाली हो, अब आके पढ़ा रहा हो, या फिर किसी ने किसी को मेंटर किया हो, doesn't matter. They're not giving you the full picture of what UPSC needs for you to score 130 plus in essays per essay. ठीक है, 250 नंबर का पेपर होता है ना. I think most of you guys should aim at now scoring 160 plus now with these frameworks. And कितने लोग ऑनलाइन? There are 42 people online, right? As and when कभी भी लगे कि आई एम ईदर मूविंग टू फास्ट, या कुछ समझ में नहीं आया, या जो मैंने समझाया वो कॉम्प्लेक्स है और डजंट लुक लाइक यू कैन इम्प्लीमेंट, प्लीज एब्सोल्युटली फील फ्री टू ड्रॉप इन द कमेंट. I have purposefully made sure that this session is on YouTube live only. There are no offline kids. I will not get distracted. And I'm all yours for the next 1 hour. So we know Buddha said life is dukkha, right? One of the things he said, in fact, the first thing he said. And what he meant, if we read between the lines, is that if you think the world around you as permanent, and if you think it's permanent, then you would not want these things to change. If that is your intention, if that is your understanding, then you'll always be sad. So what he meant, which most of us end up taking negatively, is just merely stating a fact that everything around us is impermanent, transient. The only reason why some things appear transient, permanent to us is because there is a time factor involved. ठीक है, आप time का variable हटा दोगे, everything sooner or later transforms into something or the other. That's the only simple truth Buddha was saying. And if you would not understand the core of what Buddha saying was, तो नीचे बोलेगा कि यार, you know what, life is suffering, I have accepted the suffering. In fact, I have transformed the meaning of suffering as amor fati. This is Nietzsche's famous, word block, which basically says ki, love your fate, love whatever happens to you. To which Buddha would say, boss, this is the attachment to fate. And that's the whole problem. Be attached to nothing. Now you see how these things go parallelly, hand in hand. And in चार इस एक ब्लॉक को लेते हैं, वो Nietzsche might just say कि detachment is also just a form of cowardice. So Nietzsche is arguing on a very different plane. It's almost like Buddha दे रहे हैं एक thesis and Friedrich Nietzsche is arguing the antithesis of it. On different planes, you can, those of you who've read philosophy, you would know that Buddha किसी और abstraction की layer पे बात कर रहे हैं, Nietzsche किसी और abstraction की layer पे बात कर रहे हैं. तो तुम इसको सिंथेसाइज करवा सकते हो, तुम बेसिकली दोनों से बात करके उनको एक लेवल पे ला सकते हो, बट फॉर नाउ अंडरस्टैंड दैट दिस इज हाउ टेंशंस मूव इन अ डायलॉग. उसके ऊपर से इफ यू रिमेंबर रूमीज फेमस कोट दैट द वुंड इज वेयर द लाइट एंटर्स, राइट? सो बेसिकली रूमी इन अ वे सिंथेसाइजेस these two apparent thesis and antithesis, right? Opposite thesis and antithesis. Rumi synthesizes कि यार इसको ऐसे देखना ही छोड़ दो. Wherever you are hurt, whatever is it that has hurt you or you feel like you've bled, that's where the grace enters. And if like I said, right, those of how many of you are aware of the TAS framework, the thesis antithesis synthesis framework? इस पे let's say another person जो एक group का admin है वो कहेगा कि यार what if that light which enters is either late or the wound just stays as a wound or it festers deep and it kills you. And on that, Sartre, the French philosopher, existentialist philosopher, कहेगा कि there is no cosmic plan. Don't try to imagine that there is an essence, there's a higher idea that you belong to, that because of that the bleed is worthy. No, you have to make your own meaning. Now I will pause. I hope you guys are able to understand where I'm going through with this. Sartre ends with saying that you choose what your bleeding means. You choose your own meaning. Okay. There's a famous anecdote which happened at I think around World Wars, one of these World Wars. A soldier comes to meet Sartre and says ki, you know what, my father and my brother went to the front line and both of them died. Now I have an ailing mother, she's alone, and my father and brother are out there, and I feel two pulls. I feel one, that I need to do something for my nation, kind of go in their line and avenge their deaths, avenge their whatever, because we believe that we are right and the enemy is wrong, so I would avenge their unrightful death. But on the other hand, I have my mother to take care of. क्या करोगे आप? What do you think Sartre would tell him, or what do you think you would tell him? This is the tension which that soldier was grappling. That what should I do? Should I leave my mother behind, and if I die, there is no one to take care of her, or should I just stay at home with my mother? And then in my head, let that that martyrdom or let those two deaths go waste. What would you do? People who are on the chat, what would you suggest if such a soldier were to come to you and ask for something? I'm gonna wait for a few seconds, see if anyone can answer this, and give your honest point of view. There are no right and wrong answer. Just tell me where would you err, or right now जिस परिस्थिति में जिंदगी में क्या बोलोगे उसे करने के लिए? Anyone? Is there anyone who's writing Mains 26 and you don't have a point of view on this? If the soldier stays with mother, country loses the war. Yeah. Yes. Very good point of view, right? If the soldier stays with the mother and the country loses the war, then they're coming for them both. It's interesting. Bharat, I am assuming. Go for the treatment for the ailing mother. Revenge ki jagah mother ki care karo. Okay. So you understand, right? Both of them are apparently right answers. Correct? Depends upon which point of view you stand from. Right? Although one of them is interesting, you have to assess the situation. How dire is the situation? Is your country going to lose the war if you don't go, or if people like you decide to be like this? Then to फिर दोनों जा रहे हो, ठीक है? या फिर you urge the government कि भैया sign a peace treaty because we don't have resources to fight this war and maybe wait for the other day. All of this are your genuine reactions, and all of these are ways in which you handle tensions in real life. That's exactly what UPSC demands from you when they give you a question on the essay paper. That's the level of reflection UPSC demands. Okay, I'm going to read a few more. There is a person called Pata Nahi 2026. Agar soldier loses his life and mother left alone and country won, then victory is for whom? Now I'm sure some of you can resolve this. And when you do this, you can see ये बात से बात खुल के कहीं ना कहीं synthesis होता रहेगा, and this keeps going on. This is exactly what reflection is called. When UPSC expects you to reflect on an essay topic or questions from ethics, in fact 50% of the paper in ethics has turned reflective if you look at the last year one, and I have no reason to believe that this year would be otherwise, because you've seen what a massacre prelims has been, right? How many of you are preparing for 2027, by the way, and you're here? Those of you are preparing for 2027 and you've seen how bad the prelims, how hodgepodge the paper of 26 prelims has been. Kal sham ko, we're starting a UAP conclave. It's a side news. And for the first day, 5 p.m, kal sham, we're getting a ranker, I'm forgetting the name, but rank 80. He got highest in GS, 458 plus, and he's going to take your session. Please come offline to meet with him if you want to. He'll guide you from the beginning. But now, what do we do next with this reflection topic? So, abhi kya ho raha hai? And this chat goes on and we'll come back to this chat. Isme kya ho raha hai? There are these tensions which are being navigated. And it's important that you are able to identify tensions in your everyday life. Okay? Everyday life, whatever you're reading, and it could be GS, it could be newspaper, it should be current affairs, whatever it is that you're reading, even your optional, you should identify the tensions, and they're easy to identify. You'll feel something in your gut when you read a sentence. Ki yaar, ye sahi to lag raha hai, par ye. Those are tensions. Those are what we call thesis and antithesis. Some of those thesis and antithesis we are able to resolve. Basically, some of these contradictions we are able to resolve into a higher level, in a higher plane. Some of them we are not able to resolve. जो resolve नहीं होती उन्हें paradoxes कहते हैं. जो resolve हो जाती है वो synthesis होती है. ठीक है, ये याद रखना, इसके नोट बना लेना, because we'll build on these things. तो अभी जितने भी लोग 2026 के हैं and who are not a part of the Smash Mains program because you've joined something else or you don't trust me or one video is too less a video for me to convince you, stay in this video. But regardless, make notes, compare what you were studying. And I'm honestly telling you, if you're not thinking like this and if you're not executing like this, nahi aayenge number, guarantee hai meri. So those are the tensions which we saw in that simple chat. And this chat, by the way, I shared in my Letter in Spirit group. I don't think people understood it because itna khulna padta hai na. So the tensions are there, and this is the same topic, ki life, what's the best way to live life? Tensions are acceptance versus transformation. कि जो मिल रहा है उसे accept कर लो या उसके against rebel करो, and there is an opportunity to get transformed. Both of them make sense, right? Depending upon which view or which side you stand on, both of them will make sense. Correct? Meaning versus absurdity. अगर आप ये देखोगे ना, Sartre का ये, there is no cosmic plan. We are condemned to be free. That's what Sartre said in his later years. He said, God is dead. You are condemned to be free. Now you can decide whatever meaning you want to ascribe to the events that happened to you in life. Your freedom, in a way, is your condemnation. And this is the absurdity of life. All the existentialist philosophers, Sartre, Albert Camus, ये सब लोगों को आप पढ़ोगे ना, they write on the absurd. So, meaning making versus absurdity. उसी के टाइम पे आप देखोगे Viktor Frankl, he also made his own meaning. So you can make the meaning, and I'll make different meaning for a particular event. And that is what will guide me in my life till a point comes and it doesn't guide me anymore. Pain as wound versus pain as portal. And you can, as I'm speaking, I hope you can remember the PYQs where these questions, these tensions are also asked, right? So those of you who are veterans of UPSC, give me a cheer and write on the comment sections what PYQs you remember, which also ascribe to these tensions. So the whole idea of me taking this digression, by the way, is that I make you so familiar with this concept of tensions, and this I'm launching this year itself, that you're able to see these tensions, familiar with these tensions across the essay questions that you've seen in the PYQs. That's what I'm aiming at. Okay. that you fundamentally come to an understanding that these are the tensions that you have to study. For essays, for the micro themes, I'll be taking classes on these tensions. And करूंगा क्या उसमें वो मैं भी बताऊंगा. I mean, we have enough time here. We're just 15 minutes into the video. But this is what I'm going to do. Yes, best lessons are learned through better experience. That is for this. Pain as wound versus pain as portal. Truth knows no color. One of these things. You're right. Meaning versus absurdity can be put in here. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Great professor. Not all who wander are lost. Amazing. How many of you are writing, just a show of hands, so I know कि मैं कितना intense हो सकता हूँ इस वाले session में. How many of you are writing or going to write, you think, mains 2026? Just give me a 2026 or 2027, whatever here. I'll move उसके बाद. I'll wait for a minute. Okay, professor, you are Gaurav. And dude, jitne bhi log hai 37 and 40, just write it out. I don't want passive observers. If you think this is not making any sense to you, feel free to click on any other video which is coming on your feed and get off. Awesome. Just write the year. I would understand. Hopefully speaking, which year would you be appearing for mains? और जब भी लगे कि कुछ पॉइंट समझ में आ गया या कुछ क्लैरिटी मिल गई है, feel free to put it on the comment. The YouTube live, by the very way this algorithm works, only spreads when you show your love and you share this video in your groups. Cool, awesome. We've got enough comments. Now, seniority versus universal truth. This is something which you should, which we see happening in our society, right? People who think they have more age, more years behind them, they think that they have the right things under their belt. Sometimes yes, but not always. And then there are universal truths which can be grasped by even a kid. And a kid, because he has no biases, he or she is able to spell out the truth completely nonchalantly, right? Almost sometimes, surprising the elder. So these are the tensions. अब इन tensions को वापस लगाते हैं उन chats में जो हमने देखे, so that these things become real for you. So life is dukkha, and whatever Buddha is saying is kind of an acceptance. Nietzsche says, nahi, this acceptance is passive. Let me rebel and transform this acceptance. When he says that I'll just love whatever comes my way. I'll love it. That's what he meant by amor fati. Buddha says that this kind of love will lead to some kind of attachment again, and you will fall for it again, because there would be times you would not be able to love it. And so basically better hai ki tum usko dhyan hi mat do. Be like stoic, as it were. But Nietzsche says, nahi, these are all cowardice. So see the adjectives Nietzsche is using when he's trying to give an antithesis to Buddha, or when he's trying to put objection to Buddha. Those are the things that you have to write in your essay. If there's a topic which comes, which broadly refers to this as thesis, and you have to counterpoint it, you have to basically don the role of Nietzsche here. And then if you have to basically synthesize it, you have to go towards Rumi. And the famous line that he says, the wound is where the light enters. Without the cut, there is no opening. And it's not just Rumi. There are a lot of philosophers across traditions have said something similar. So, jo bhi aapko yaad aaye, that's where these tensions get resolved. Okay. Now, as I said, thesis, antithesis, ek synthesis banta hai. That synthesis is a new thesis. That thesis can also be challenged. Just the way this guy challenged the thesis, the Rumi ka quote, ki bhai, what if that wound festers? And if you remember, there is an interesting PYQ which came last year, which directly comes and puts in here. Jisko samajh mein aa raha hai wo likh sakta hai. Okay, what next? Sartre then adds the absurdity to this whole logic. And then, Ghalib ne to bakwas kari. By the way, bakar, or what we call as, levity, or what we call as pakchodi or gappe, whatever, is also a way to dissolve tension, right? Sometimes when things become very serious and you're putting in all logical points, or you're becoming very morose and sad and pessimistic, what we call, sometimes laughter just, fizzles it out for now, for them. It just kind of brings the mood now down or at some normal level, and then you can rethink or you can restart your thinking. So as you go and tag the things you read daily into the tensions that are there, trust me, this whole thinking in tensions will become like your default framework. Okay, you would know ki chal kya rahi hai baat, right? And you can resolve the tension either via the task framework which I teach, the thesis, antithesis, synthesis framework, or via paradoxes. Jahan pe resolve nahi karna hota zabardasti. You just have to marinate yourself in that tension. Just stay there, look at it from different angles, and just eventually not conclude, because the conclusion would be forced. Cool. This you can read on your own. This is me having tagged all these things so that you get an idea of what are the different tensions involved in a very simple chat. Okay. So with that as a backdrop for you to understand कि चल क्या रहा है, take a screenshot of this. ठीक है? These are the two big frameworks which are now very useful for the essays. This is the framework which I taught last year. This is the framework I reserve only for people who are already hitting 130 in their writing, and then maybe they can tackle much difficult essays. And there are questions which are asked across these two frameworks, or there are questions which are asked which can be solved across these two things. So this is very simple. Thesis and antithesis, they're contradictory point of views, apparently contradictory point of views. Both have some rights and some wrongs. When they clash together, this is not a debate. It's not a debate. One side is not right. Okay, in a debate, either you're for the motion or against the motion, and one of them eventually wins. This is not what thesis, antithesis, synthesis is. इसमें क्या होता है? The best elements of thesis and antithesis are elevated to a whole new level, and you get a new synthesis. That synthesis becomes a new thesis, and then this process goes on till you get the final synthesis. अब ये इतने multi-level कैसे हो पाता है? ठीक है? How many of you over here has written one single essay using TAS framework, or using any framework where you're giving both point of views, like for and against? How many of you have written, and वो essay का नाम क्या है बताओ? I want comment, guys. I'll just have some water. All of you, Abhijit, Pranjal, Bharat, Abhishek, वीर, अथर्व, कोई भी किसी ने भी ऐसे लिखा है अभी तक, तो टॉपिक क्या है उसका? Okay, that's just one of you guys have written this. How many of you have not written any essay? Just show of hands. Interesting. We cannot step into the. किसने एक भी नहीं लिखा है? I mean, just anonymous हो वैसे भी क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है? I just want to know कि because your comments is going to help me pace the sessions. Just okay, you have guys. जिसने नहीं लिखा है सीधे बोल दो ना. हर्षित, okay, awesome, कोई बात नहीं हर्षित. I hope you're not writing this year the exam. Okay, Vivek has not written. Cool. जिसने भी नहीं भी लिखा है, so basically the reason I asked this question is you might not be familiar with the nuance that I'm talking about here because you haven't felt stuck on the paper. Problem ये होती है ना, you get an essay topic and immediately examples will come to you. That's the default way of thinking. So I'll tell you the lowest way of thinking for any essay which is now coming is essay का topic देखा, you agree to that point of view, you think of examples from that old mnemonic called pestle, which is honestly an abomination. If you're reading or studying from any coaching which has so much as even mentioned the word pestle and given it even half a class, भाग निकलो यहाँ से, I'll teach you for free. ठीक है? Because pestle is just an over glorified mnemonic for what would be a commonsensical thinking. ठीक है? कुछ नहीं है. जो लोग एक आधी 10 क्लासेस पे बिताते हैं ना, टाइम वेस्ट कर रहे हैं आपका. People who are not going beyond tasks into paradoxes and tensions, they're actually wasting your time, wasting your time, because to master TAS also you need a lot of classes. Otherwise बहुत ही हल्का फुल्का TAS कर देते हो तुम. TAS is thesis, antithesis, synthesis, by the way. Okay, awesome. So this I taught, this I haven't, because paradox is difficult. It's different and difficult. Paradoxes में कुछ conclusion, कुछ synthesis आ ही नहीं सकता. ठीक है? Paradoxes are basically those things which are true at the same time. And ऐसी बहुत कम चीजें होती हैं लाइफ में जिसमें तुम बहुत कम इंस्टेंसेस होते हैं where you're able to write better in paradoxes. Okay, so we'll take examples of a few things, right? Enough theory होगी. I'll take you through some examples now. So TAS basically resolves the contradiction. TAS makes very simple for you. As you get more and more mature, आपको एक ऐसे के टॉपिक में ना बहुत सारी टेंशन्स दिख जाएंगी. इनफैक्ट एज यू नेविगेट थ्रू द ऐसे टॉपिक, एंड वील डू दिस इन क्लास इन ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग, यू विल सी a lot of tensions poking up. We'll take maybe one or two in this session itself, but you will see them resolving, not debating, but resolving to a synthesis. And then basically I'll show you how this works. बहुत सारे बच्चे जिनके पेपर मैंने चेक किए लास्ट ईयर, वो बस ना एक ब्लॉक कर पाते हैं, थीसिस एंटीथीसिस सिंथेसिस का. इतने में तुम्हारे को 80 नंबर तो मिल सकते हैं. यू गेट 80 और अबाउट. कुछ लोग इसकी और लेवल्स खोल देते हैं, ठीक है, एंड देयर इंक्रीजेस योर चांसेस टू गेट मोर मार्क्स. देन क्या होता है, योर इंट्रोडक्शन शुड बी सच दैट यू शुड बी एबल टू कॉल बैक द इंट्रोडक्शन इन योर कंक्लूजन. एक ये भी कार्ट होती है विच यू विल मास्टर विद टाइम. सो योर इंट्रोडक्शन शुड नॉट बी समथिंग सो रैंडम की फिर कंक्लूजन तुम बहुत ही बेसिक सा कि गवर्नमेंट को ये करना चाहिए, बहुत ही क्लीशे कंक्लूजन ना दो, ठीक है, बिकॉज दिस इज वेयर यू लूज मार्क्स. दिस इज वेयर योर एसेज लूज टेंशन. एंड ट्रस्ट मी गाइज, आई विल शो यू वन ऑफ द रिटन एसेज इन दिस सेशन. आपको खुद नहीं फील आएगी उससे नीचे का लिखने में, एक बार आप वो देख लोगे. ओके, तो आई गिव यू टू एग्जाम्पल्स, वन ऑफ अ टास्क फ्रेमवर्क ड्रिवन एसे and one of a paradox framework driven essay. And you will know obviously paradoxes are difficult to write. समझ में आ जाएगा, but they're difficult to write. So this is one of the PYQs. Forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. Do you know when did this question came? Which year was this? Great, Samriddhi. Girls are weighed down by restrictions. The society has more justice. Amazing. Yeah, these are right. Which year was this PYQ? This is a PYQ. This is a thematic PYQ. It's not so much of a reflective essay. Mild reflection, 2024, correct. But इस हर चीज में टैस है, ठीक है. तो नॉन नेगोशियबली टैस के अलावा अगर तुम कुछ भी सोच रहे हो पैराडॉक्स और टैस के अलावा, आप गलत जा रहे हो अपने ऐसे जर्नी में. एंड डजंट मैटर इफ यू राइटिंग इन 2026, डजंट मैटर अगर 28 के लिख रहे हो या 27 के लिख रहे हो, फर्क नहीं पड़ता. इसके अलावा किसी भी तरह से स्टार्ट कर रहे हो, गलत कर रहे हो. There are two common fallacies which I have heard from students, even rankers. One, कि sir, let's first master the simple frameworks like PESTEL and stakeholder approaches and कौन से और frameworks हैं by the way which you've been taught by your teachers. And let's first we'll master the simple ones so that we start writing the essay and then we'll come to task. गलत है ये, ठीक है. दूसरा, people think that our copies will be checked by professors who would be overworked and overburdened. So, if we write a very complex essay topic, they will not understand. And it's rather better if I write a very simpler one. There's a difference between simple writing and trivial writing. और ये तो कभी भी मत सोचना कि those professors do not have the brains. They're like what? The experience they have is sometimes more than the years you've lived. Okay, you might be what, 25, 30. They have experience of this much year of teaching under their belt. They know this thing. If I am able to decipher this, I'm sure they're gone beyond this. What they're looking for is the exactitude of your arguments across thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. What they're not looking for is verbosity, voluble words, GMAT type language. You don't have to have a flowery vocabulary to be a great bureaucrat, but you need to have an incisive mind to just see through the layers which other people. बाकी लोग खिचड़ी देखते हैं ना जहां पे, वहां तुमको ना almost चावल के दाने दिखने चाहिए. That's how incisive a bureaucrat's mind ought to be, or any administrator mind ought to be. ठीक है. जो भी पेस्टल पढ़ा रहा है अभी, they are living the vestiges of life which is long gone. So good luck if you're reading. Just don't study there. You're wasting your time. And don't believe in the nonsense कि पहले ये तो मास्टर कर लो फिर यहाँ पे आना. Don't believe in this nonsense that पहले ABCD लिख लो उसके बाद. उल्टा करो, reverse, start reverse, ठीक है. You'll find it difficult to begin with, but trust me, it's more rewarding. Anyway, this topic बहुत simple है. Human civilization versus natural world. Progress seemed to require destruction of forests, yet that destruction ends the civilization itself. So there's a thesis and there's an antithesis. And that's the tension. The tension is this, that nature is the foundation of a civilization, yet when the civilization proceeds, goes further, it extracts a heavy price on the nature, and we are seeing it. So we are seeing the same thing in different dimensions. Okay, this tension we see in different dimensions. Those dimensions, अगर आप आराम से भी बैठोगे, will automatically be either from politics or from environment or from legislature. or from any other thing, societal. You do not have to remember a pestle framework to know कि dimensions क्या है. But if you follow the task architecture properly, आपको पता है कि आपको एक argument निकालना है, a cohesive argument. अब ध्यान से सुनना, and maybe make a note about this. A cohesive argument is one which shows you the logic of the one thing. You do not have to name drop. In fact, it's sometimes better that you write an essay without examples so that I can only read your arguments. You have to show me the sequence of things which happen, which makes this inevitable. That, as you make a civilization, as you expand, it's almost inevitable that you come to the threshold where you're flirting with development or extinction. So you have to come up with those levels of argument which shows me, oh, this is a legit tension which a leader of that civilization faces. And this is a simpler essay. So iska answer bas yahi hai ki, civilization that treat forest as commons. आजकल हो रहा है ना, we're treating the world resources as commons. Deep sea mining you might be reading in Samachar Manthan or listening from Shikhar sir or just reading by current affairs खुद से. Now they're treated as commons. So it's not just about कि technology क्या use करें कि हमें कैसे extraction कर लेना है. We have to preserve it for the future generation. जब आप when you read applied ethics for the environment part in the ethics paper, this is how those tensions evolve. If you get a case study, both of these are valid. Both of these are valid. There's a case study or there's a class you're going to take where if you're a bureaucrat and you get a thing from a minister that boss, these projects need to be cleared, the file need to be signed so that the development people or whatever the industries can just do their work and remove these forests because we need development. तो बहुत ही सतही लेवल पे सोचोगे, बहुत ही सरफेस लेवल पे सोचोगे तो बोलोगे no, I mean this development is going to cost the natural resources, the ecology of this thing would be destroyed. So ये पेड़ पौधे, ये जानवर कहाँ जाएंगे versus ये इंसानों को जो चाहिए. तो आपको पता है ये सारे आइडियाज डिसमिस हो जाते हैं, right? At this level, if you're talking like someone who lacks critical thinking, who's only kind of passionately appealing to the principle of care. ये एक dimension है. अगर ये dimension नहीं चल रही है, what else would you do? Tell me, what would the minister say? So let's say I am the minister and I'm asking, and you're the IAS officer of this, whatever, DM of this district, and I'm saying these files were sanctioned before you came, and now there's X amount of gap which has happened. There's so much of whatever. You just sign these files and let the development carry. What answer would you give? Good, Harshit. Good, and we'll take your comment and we'll build on top of it. But let's say I as a minister then counter you and say that, boss, there's a cost to the exchequer which I have to pay because you're deliberating too hard on this, right? Every day that you lose, I'm losing on the capital, I'm losing on the economy, finances which have been put forth by your predecessor. अब तुम आ गए हो अभी आज के दिन में डिस्ट्रिक्ट के डीएम बन के एंड तुम कह रहे हो नहीं मेरे हिसाब से दिस इज गोइंग टू गो bad. I mean, I believe that this will do bad to the nature, to the ecology, etc. And as a minister I just give you the economic reason. अब क्या करोगे बताओ? कितने लोग हैं यहाँ पे? 40. Tell me, what would you do now? How will you counter this tension, this claim from me? Environment impact assessment is necessary to assess and based on report act. Yeah, that's one. एक तो प्रॉब्लम ये कि जीएस पता है प्रॉब्लम क्या है ना, यू कांट बी इन दिस मोमेंट प्रेजेंट विद मी बिकॉज देयर सो मच ऑफ नॉलेज दैट यू ऑलरेडी हैव, इन्फॉर्मेशन दैट यू ऑलरेडी हैव. तो तुम बहुत ओपनली सोच नहीं पाते हो अभी. ऑब्वियसली EIA, दिस इज नॉट अ न्यू प्रॉब्लम, इट्स अ सॉल्व प्रॉब्लम एंड देयर आर डिफरेंट वेज इन विच द ब्यूरोक्रेट कैन गेट आउट. EIA है. Yes, Samriddhi. So someone can actually hire a consultant and account for, okay, the ecology, etc. makes these wildlife park. This is the tourism. These are the other natural resources. जिनसे ये आ सकता है. If you're a good engineer or if you're a good MBA and you're thinking of entering the services, this is where your management consulting headspace should go in. That you actually give a future accounting to the minister who probably is well intentioned, but is not well versed with the accounting principles and has taken some money from the industrialist, and you tell him, sir, I appeal to your wisdom that here's the math that I've done and we're going to net lose. You see how navigating tensions is going to actually be your job. business which makes only money is a poor business, so we need to go for more comprehensive way with local engagement. Yes, Abhijit, but these lines and these statements are not rigorous statements. I get the heart in the statement, but this statement doesn't have the head. Your arguments, as someone who needs to be taken seriously, have to be both head and heart mix. You have to be so sharp, so data backed in your argument, and then maybe take help of these other things like cultural heritage, UNESCO की heritage ये खत्म हो जाएगी, intangible. So your arguments have to contain a mix of both tangible and intangible. तो समझ रहे हो argument अच्छा बनाने के लिए कितनी मेहनत करनी पड़ती है? I mean, are you getting it? Because the whole point of taking you through tensions is to make you understand that, guys, sharpen your arguments. Example you will be able to write, I have no doubt on that. Everyone here who's able to get this thing, sharpen your arguments. I keep saying that we're not taught critical thinking in schools and colleges, but that statement A is abstract, B, no one likes to hear it from anyone. The very reason that you guys are attempting UPSC, that some of you are from engineering, medical, and great arts colleges, means that you have some level of critical thinking. So like, you would not like it to hear it from me again and again that critical thinking missing hai. Lekin if you're able to understand the level of argument that you have to make, show the appreciation right now, so that I get that you get it. Okay, we're good. Iski synthesis simple hai, right? Basically, it's saying that you should treat these natural resources as commons, as an embedded philosophy in your legislature. And we do that. So EIA and all these things, if you understand the philosophy behind these legislatures, you would see those people reflect a lot, yaar. And that's why UPSC exam is asking you to reflect. कब तक रट्टे मार मार के बस डेटा लिखते रहोगे भाई? कब तक? तो सोचो, और जब तुम ऐसे सोचोगे ना, योर प्रिपरेशन वुड बिकम ब्यूटीफुल. आप करंट अफेयर्स पढ़ोगे, आप अपने टीचर से फिलॉसफी पूछोगे करंट अफेयर्स की, फिर आप याद रख पाओगे. Okay, so Bharat has asked if that type of thinking is not taught till now. This type of thinking is not taught formally in the school or in school and colleges, but it's taught formally in the Indian households. Because whatever you propose, your parents, when they dismiss, and if your proposal is persuasive, then their dismissal is also persuasive, right? So you have seen these tensions flying across in your household or among your friend circle. ये बस उसको channel करके लाने का है. The only problem you might have is synthesis might not be good. So that comes from practice. So write more and more essays. Okay. Honestly, if you get this, there is no reason why you should not score 140 plus in essays. There is absolutely no reason. The whole point is that, are you reflective enough? Point number one. Point number two, are you able to write your reflections in an analytical manner, which is a sound, hierarchical laying down of arguments and points, in a flow that makes sense, with an intro and conclusion which loops back to itself in a way that says, wow, this is beautiful. Now this is crystal clear, and you've taken care of all the possible tensions in some framework. The most approachable framework to do this thing is TAS. Okay, Bharat, did I answer your question? Yeah, Professor, you're right. Cool. I'll move to the next one. This one is a paradox. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. Tell me what's the paradox here. I'll move to the previous screen. I don't want you to. ये पुराना ऐसे. There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. इसमें paradox क्या है? Paradox का मतलब कि what's the bind? What's a double bind in this? What's the absurdity in this line as you feel? Yeah, it's a contradiction. Means versus end, right? So you are on a tension here. Means versus end is a tension. किस पे जाएं? क्या important है? Means is important है, end is important है. But ये ना second level है, layer है. This is not saying कि किसी भी तरीके से achieve your goal. You just reach your goal. This is not that debate, right? You guys understand that, right? This, I don't know how I can save this so that you'll read it, but fine. Thoda honest and intellectually honest. This is not the means versus end debate, right? Do you get it? Exactly. It's a process versus end goal. But अब आप देख रहे हो, when you stay with me on an essay topic and you just deliberate hard and don't start writing with examples, you will understand that कितने सारे blind spots हैं. We just think basically with nothing but glorified pattern matchers. We just take a subject, take a topic, we just start matching pattern. क्या सुना है उड़ते उड़ते without verifying what has entered our subconscious just comes out. It's a process versus end game. ठीक है? But what's the paradox here? Yeah, I cannot change, right? I cannot hide this. What's the paradox here? Anyone? Yeah. Okay. पढ़ ही लिया है. The paradox पता है क्या है? Which, you know, what all these philosophers, they come and they say कि जैसे how many of you have read quantum physics? Quantum physics, by the way, is as close to Vedant as I think anything can be in my limited reading experience. Yes, that's the paradox. The moment you look for happiness, you lose it. Quantum में भी होता है ना, the moment you look for the exact position of a particle and you also want to see it, वो because it's in a probability field, वो कहीं भी हो सकता है. अभी वो यहाँ पे with this much probability. It's not present. It's just weird math. There's nothing logical about quantum. Everyone gets confused. But that's the thing. Schrodinger's cat. Yes. Nahi. The very definition of happiness is subjective is not the answer to this. That's what I want you to keep thinking. Tell me your defaults. Tell me whatever comes. No one is judging you. You guys are anyway anonymous. The answer is that the moment you look for happiness, it goes away. The moment you look for something, it goes. The moment you try to conceptualize happiness, you define this, if this happens, I'll be happy. You're leaving a lot to the other variables which act on it. Yet, the paradox is that, you know, happiness can be achieved through effort, or the pursuit itself is the happiness. The paradox becomes that if I do not even define, you know, my happiness in like my make-believe place where I'll be happy, where I think I've achieved something, ठीक है, तो कैसे होगा? तो कैसे deep जाओगे? How will you go deep? You will say that this is not what happiness is. That is pleasure. Now your vocabulary has to be better. When you define goals for yourself, ठीक है, whatever, UPSC निकाल दूंगा या ये कर दूंगा, तो you've just defined milestones where you'll get some kick. And so now you're living in the future. You're guided for that. So आप अपना present तो भूल गए हो. And if this sounds like a moral science and stupid lecture, then I can understand why it sounds very stupid and it sounds unreasonable or very first world. But that's precisely what this topic is about. That the moment you define that I'll be happy, happiness यहाँ पे peace and content है, by the way. It's not the pleasure principle. It's the contentment. जिसको सच्चे आनंद वाला आनंद कहते हैं ना, ये वो happiness है. So you should also know how to actually decipher this topic. If you have zero idea about philosophy, आप इसे गलत समझ लोगे. Honestly, you'll not be able to do justice to what UPSC expects. So that would be like a knowledge gap for you to even attempt this essay. So this is the paradox where both these things, you have to be happy in the pursuit. एक बहुत ही famous YouTube video है of Bishan Singh Bedi, late Bishan Singh Bedi. I think Gaurav Kapoor, who's a sports commentator, he took an interview, and I think I have also shared that in the Letter and Spirit group. And Bishan Singh Bedi, somewhere in the middle, quotes that, you know, now that he's retired and way older, he goes to attend satsangs. ठीक है, तो जत्थे होते हैं शायद. Are there any sardars here in the YouTube right now in my life? तो वहां पे he gets this learning कि यार धुरंधर जो होते हैं क्रिकेट के, जो पहले गावस्कर, नवाब पटौदी, सचिन तेंदुलकर एंड नाउ कोहली, राइट? The way they play cricket, the way they think of cricket is that जुनून में ही सुकून है और सुकून में ही जुनून है, right? Their passion gives them the peace. That's paradoxical. That's apparently contradictory, but they're able to live this truth side by side. There's a famous quote in Gita, and I don't remember, so I can't paraphrase it exactly, but it says something to the tune of कि when Krishna basically Arjun से कहते हैं कि, you know, fight the war without the fever of it. That's the way you should do karma yoga. He establishes that karma yoga करना चाहिए. You should do your karma and कर्म की चिंता करो, फल की चिंता मत करो. All that we know. But because none of us have read Gita, I'm assuming here at certain level of depth, towards later Arjun says ki yaar, it's so easy to say, but it's so damn difficult to do. I mean, it's almost next to impossible for me to not have any desire or not have any goal. And then Krishna kind of, goes ahead and finally drops this line that, fight the war without the fever of it. How can you do that when you cannot expect a result? So what then? So then the fighting itself, you'd have to think like in gratitude that, thank you for giving me the opportunity to fight a good war or a war which has to be fought. Something abstract, okay, which you need to understand as aspirants. Otherwise, likh nahi paoge. So we'll do these things in classes, but this is where you have to work. In fact, one of the PYQs, which was around contentment is natural luxury and something is artificial poverty. There was a PYQ. The superior insight out here is this. It is not that you should not demand more from life, or it is not that ambition nahi hoga ki duniya ko aage nahi move hona chahiye. It is not passivity that the thesis is advocating. The thesis is saying that if you genuinely have to make a change in this world, you have to detach yourself from these material accretions. Jo bhi bol do. I'm sorry, pardon the English. That is how Gandhi, Martin Luther King, all these big guys were able to move the world, because they let go of their small ego and what that ego might desire and gave into the larger thing which they had to fight for. That is how the big changes in the world happened, because of people or via the people who were able to, give into the larger goal. Okay, so they acted with passion, they acted with rigor, they had all the energy, but they were not guided by their mini egos and mini desires and stuff like that. So they were content in the idea of making a lasting change with or without themselves being there. And you can quote Bhagat Singh also, right? Yeah, that's the thing, Rituraj. Bhagat Singh, when he said, ki meri dulhan azadi hai. What kind of stupid statement is that, objectively speaking? But that was but if you call it stupid, it's because you're not there at his level. उसके दिमाग में वो किस लेवल पे घूम रहा था, उसके बाद वो क्या कर गए कि उन्होंने नहीं देखी आजादी जो दिला के ले गए, right? So that way you can mold your arguments. These are the way arguments formation need to be done. Cool, awesome. Are we good? I see the numbers going down. Am I making sense? Are you guys? Is it at the level of maturity and your preparation that I am able to meet you? कोई बात नहीं Bharat, we'll come to meet me in the office one of these days and we'll see. Come up with your essays. But all of the people out here, am I able to make sense? Because, as we all are, I'm also slave to the algorithm. I will dumb it down if this doesn't make sense to you. But if I dump it down any further, you will not score marks. So that's the tension that I have. See, I grapple with the tension of not letting my live go down a certain number. Otherwise, I'll just close it, because it's then better for me to teach my own students, right? And also, it should make sense for you so that, you can apply this and get some marks, right? I'm not here to perform. Okay, awesome. So let's do this then. If it makes sense to you, let's do this. The process of self-discovery has now been technologically outsourced. Let's do this in a way that, tell me, you follow my prompts now, okay? Tell me what's the first thing which comes to your mind when you hear this topic. Not the one that you have to write in the essay, but सबसे पहले क्या दिमाग में आता है? The first instinct, what did you get? The process of self-discovery has now been technologically outsourced. What do you get? AI. Okay, yeah, ऐसे ही बोलो. Just give me the first line or the first keyword that comes to your mind. I'll wait for a minute on this. Okay, if you want me to help you, how many of you have taken those online tests, psychology tests, MBTI, वगैरह वगैरह वाले? How many of you have taken any of those tests? Okay, if not tests, how many of you have taken those quizzes on BuzzFeed or any other platform wherein, you select which Hogwarts character you are from, or, what would you do in this case? And then, you answer 10 questions and they tell you this is who you are. INTJ, I don't know, I don't remember, but something like that. Guilty. Guys, okay, honestly, those of you who are live and who don't care to comment, I would then request just leave. Because for me to actually make sense of this session for you guys. For those who are serious here, please comment. I'm reading them. So most of you have given some kind of a test or not, right? And what happens when you get a result? Is it able to hook you? Do you agree with that hook? क्या होता है? What is it? What happens when you get a result? This is who you are. Do you agree? Not agree? क्या करते हो उसके बाद? I'm going to give you your own life's quick sneak peek before I navigate through this essay. And don't judge yourself, mental dimming और ये सभी मत करो, because you're all guilty of doing something like this. How else would you reckon with the fact that there's a startup called AstroTalk which has made like 400 CR in last 1 year? क्योंकि बहुत सारे, I'm sure there's a subset of UPSC students also who've gone to a particular astrologer की boss, क्या मेरी लाइफ में लिखा भी है UPSC निकालना, क्या मेरे ग्रह नक्षत्र सही चल रहे हैं, कहीं जल चढ़ाना है या कहीं दूध देना है, something like that, जिससे कि हो जाएगा. I mean, how else do we explain that? So we're all guilty of doing things like that. What happens is when we do that, and let me just in fact क्या कहते हैं, steelman this thesis. In a country where mental health infrastructures are so thin and social stigmas are so thick, it's kind of good that you have some apps and some websites which kind of, and I hope they are backed by some science or at least some emerging research in psychology, that they give you a glimpse of who you are, so that at least you can come to terms with who you are, what you would do, etc., etc. I hope you agree with this. Agreed. All of what you've written, I agree. But what we're doing here, we're building a strong thesis, because a good thesis is a set of worthy arguments. जिनको अगर तुम उनके against contradictions दोगे as antithesis, that is the only time when your essay will really come out to be reflective. So don't be superficial in what we are trying to do. Just give into this rigor. ठीक है? Yeah. All of you who are guilty, just please write. There's no way any of us know each other, and the worst case scenario would be I'll meet you and I'll be able to figure out your YouTube handle, but I think that's fine. That's something we can hedge. Okay, so we got it right. So I have given the thesis to you that it's actually good that tech has these tools, these apps, etc., which can help you know yourself, because otherwise we live in a country where we don't even have a portion of GDP associated or given to this mental health crisis, by the way, which I think has now been given. Can you tell me the news which came where mental health has become a right? Or I think there are things in order. I just want to, check in with your some current affairs knowledge. Do you know what just recently happened last year? When mental health has been acknowledged by the I think by the law is going to acknowledge mental health as a thing. कोई थोड़ी जहमत उठाएगा बताने के लिए what are the steps that actually Indian government is taking to take care of mental health, which is a inroad into self-discovery, mental health, and then you go further and then finally you discover yourself, right? So किसी को पता है? Because this is how, when I say that, थोड़े 2 शब्द लिख दो यार हर्षित, give me the exact keywords which you've read in news. This is what I mean when I say that, the more reflective you will become, the more tensions you're able to navigate in your life, the better your current affairs, your static reading would be. Trust me, you'll enjoy that. You'll enjoy this whole process called UPSC, which otherwise, honest to God, is becoming a PIB nightmare. Okay, so those of you who are 2027 folks, we're having the conclave starting tomorrow. It will run 5 days. It will happen on Zoom only, so it will not be YouTube live. So register. I think link मिल जाएगा. मेरे पास नहीं है अभी. For the day one, we're getting all India rank 80. I think who scored highest in GS. He'll tell you what he did. Okay. अब देखो. So I have proven to you that it's kind of actually good to have technology help you. Now let me ask you: is this the kind of self-exploration which Socrates or Buddha or Shankaracharya or any other religious philosopher prescribed to you? Is this what they meant when they talked about self-knowledge? Do you remember that their key phrases? Socrates is known for which key phrase, if I may ask? Okay, you know what? The one key phrase which came to me when I read this essay topic was that self help is now easy, or the self discovery is now easy because I have tech. But self discovery was never supposed to be easy. I get that what we have done, we've removed friction from the process of discovering something. But this self discovery, especially, and for that तुम्हें पता होना चाहिए ना self discovery क्या था. अब if someone who has no idea of philosophy, who has no idea, who has not read Buddha, basic level of Buddha reading भी नहीं हुई है, तो इसलिए ethics और ऐसे पेपर के लिए आपको पढ़ना तो पड़ेगा ही. So if you know exactly what self discovery was supposed to be, this cannot be interpreted randomly. Okay, self discovery मेरे लिए इतना ही self discovery है कि मैं अपनी personality type जान लूँ, तो फिर वो self discovery नहीं है भैया, वो personality type है. वो भी given for a particular test. तुम रॉरशार्क टेस्ट, इंकप्लॉट टेस्ट लोगे, उससे कुछ और आएगा तुम्हारे पर्सनालिटी टाइप, या डिफरेंट आएगा. ठीक है, दिस इज नॉट व्हाट बुद्धा, गांधी, टॉल्स्टॉय और अदर पीपल, दिस इज हाउ नॉट हाउ दे वेंट इनटू द सेल्फ डिस्कवरी मोड, राइट? एग्जैक्टली. सो भरत, यू राइट. सो दिस इज नॉट सेल्फ डिस्कवरी. ठीक है, एंड देन maybe if you think hard enough, maybe technology has not sped fast the self discovery. Maybe it has replaced the whole self discovery with something else. That's what a critical thinker would do. Maybe what you're calling self-discovery is not self-discovery. There's something else which is happening now. There is maybe just an attestation of who you are. There's a confirmation bias now at play at a much larger scale. Just telling you who you have been in the past. And articulating it so beautifully कि तुम कहोगे यार इसने ही समझा है मुझको. ना मेरे घर वाले समझ पाए, ना दोस्त समझ पाए, ना कोई समझ पाया, but it's just the AI system which has been able to understand me. That is not self-discovery. Self-discovery gives you insight which should startle you. Self-discovery gives insight which should make you uncomfortable with your understanding of yourself. It shows you the mirror. It shows you your blind spots. And it's a process which has a lot of doing and undoing. It's not a process where I take a quiz, 20 questions, and that's about it. That's not self-discovery. Okay, right, that's astrology 101 in a way, you can say that. ठीक है, तो अभी समझ में आया, तो ये समझ में आया ना. Now I'll tell you the three tensions which are at play here, and you can note these things down. So there are three tensions. The tension number one is ease versus authenticity. You get this? जिसको समझ में आया कि ये tension क्या है, write a few lines on this. The whole idea is that if something costs you nothing, would you value it the same way? Technology has removed the friction. There is this element of friction. वही element remove कर दिया tech ने. Do you understand how actually deep this tension is? Self discovery में एक ही element होता है यार, friction. और वही remove हो गया because of tech. It's now frictionless. Let's say I even tell you about yourself. Let's say I tell you about yourself, who you are. Let's say you sit down in front of me and I say that, this is how you're writing the essay. You think like this. You'll be like, fair enough. Fine. So I will not write like this. Versus I ask you that you just write essays. Write at least 3 essays and come to me. And you will discover the things in yourself. So much better hoga, right? So first tension. Yeah, and Socrates ka बहुत important quote hai, right? And an examined life is not worth living. So यहाँ पे if I just use tech, I'm not examining my own life. Tech has examined my life. I've outsourced it to the tech. You examine my life and you tell me who I am. I don't have time for that. And soon enough, I won't even have the headspace to do that. Yeah, Mara created friction in Buddha self-discovery. Great. That's, I think, the first comment from Devanand. Okay, first. Second कोई बताएगा? We've discussed the tensions. I mean, we've spoken a lot. So if you're perceptive enough, tell me the second tension. I'll wait for 30 seconds on that. This is not a tension, that's a long process. This is like a byproduct. Okay, think in tensions. The whole idea is think in tensions. और क्या tensions है? एक tension है which is similar, discovery versus confirmation. Like I said, right? Self introspection is supposed to give you insights, which when you sit quietly, when you deliberate on, this is how I think. No, I think like this. You go through that whole process, you discover something about you. Versus if a machine reads through all your posts, reads through all your likes, reads through all the time spent on certain reels, kind of make a persona of who you are, and then accordingly starts giving you more and more reels, more and more content, because it knows who you are and what is going to make you spend more time on the platform. That is basically a confirmation bias. That's not self-discovery. एक तरीके से देखा जाए ना तो एल्गोरिथम कैन नॉट डिस्कवर यू, इट कैन ओनली कंफर्म you who you have been. It cannot help you discover you. When some of you, I don't know how many of you have used chat GPT to, I mean, just try self therapy or something. How many of you have done that? Anyone here? That's a great point, Amit Singh Pal. Great point. अब लोग सोच रहे हो, तो जिसने भी कुछ 15-20 मिनट पहले बोला था ना कि यार अभी तक मेरे को क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग नहीं बताया कैसे करते हैं, वो कोई करने की चीज छोड़ना है. जस्ट बी ओपन, राइट डाउन व्हाट कम्स टू यू. द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट अब यू हैव टू राइट ऑल दीज थिंग्स इनटू अ नाइसली लेड डाउन ऐसे, एंड आई विल शो यू हाउ इट्स सपोज्ड टू बी डन. बट लाइक पहले सोचना तो सीख लो, ठीक है. How many of you, it can't just be one of you. Bharat is the only guy who's answering all the questions. It can't be just this one guy who's done all the jugglery with GPTs and Claude and Gemini, whatever you use. Anyone else who's bothered to ask even this prompt that, hey, basis whatever you've seen I've prompted, what kind of a person I am? Has anyone done that? That would be a good thing to do. Just go to your AI, whatever system, and just ask this, that basis whatever interactions you and I have had, sketch the persona. And don't try to please me. Just give me the bare bones of who you think I am. So it will give you the bare bones. And if you now say that, be critical about me, just screw me over, then you're tweaking the algorithm. Then you would want the algorithm to screw you over. So then it will happily oblige because he thinks that's what you want. And then it will give you a block. This is who you are, boss. It will show you a mirror. And then you would not like it, or depending upon your maturity, then you start arguing. Something interesting is going to come. And that is actually a good use of tech. Okay, that's a great use of tech, by the way. Everything else, which is passive consumption, you've already outsourced. Your self, in fact, is not even located here now. The self is out there. So there is an image, there is a movie of self which is playing out there, and you think, oh, this is me. So this is discovery versus confirmation. Yeah. Yeah. So Samriddhi, I don't know if can I like it? Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Can I like it? No, I don't think this allows me to. Wow, I can only report and block you, Samriddhi, but that's exactly what it is. You give one bit of info of your childhood incident and it'll justify you. You can be this horrible person. In fact, if you're not rigorous and critical with your prompts and all that, trust me, your UPSC की पढ़ाई भी तुम क्या कर रहे हो भगवान ही जाने, पता नहीं कहाँ जा रही है वो. Okay, the third tension, which is up similar आएंगी, ठीक है. So the point of me taking you through this exercise is that you'll open up more dimensions. In those dimensions, you'll give an argument. For those arguments, you'll give an example. That's what it will happen. Individual versus curated self. The self you get from algorithm, tech, even GPT, or even the best of AI systems, LLMs, Claude, which I keep recommending, and I can't recommend more for you to use, is that it's also a pattern match. It's a data crunched on people who tick some checkboxes that you have ticked. It's a pattern match to give you the statistically probable archetype of who you are. That's still not who you are. Okay? But if you take that, but it's articulated so well. I mean, the way they'll write in English and the way they'll just put the nuance. तुमने life में कभी नहीं ऐसे अपने बारे में सोचा होगा. So it's a great. It might not even be pleasing to your senses, but you'll be like, यार बेइज्जती भी करो तो ऐसे करो, ठीक है. बेइज्जती भी करी किसने तो इतने तमीज से की. But that's also not self. You remember a PYQ which is on this? There are two PYQs which I remember, which is on same thing. Exactly. So now you'll come to a point that technology can become a barrier in self-discovery. और दोस्तों इसका आंसर माइंडफुलनेस नहीं है. तो अगर गलती से तुमने अपना बेवकूफ सिंथेसिस लिखा कि वी शुड बी माइंडफुल, दैट वुड बी लाइक तमाचा ऑन द फेस ऑफ योर ओन एसे जो तुमने इतने प्यार से लिखा है. Yeah. Correct. So Amit has said, but what is technology? earlier we had access to Guru live, and now owing to increased population and many people seeking the self-discovery, what's the harm in using tech to know one's pattern? Answer that now. And can anyone answer that? It's a legit point that Amit has put, and let me see if you have the heads and the brains to answer this question. Answer this point. सब लोग अभी सब कुछ pause करके अमित का comment पढ़ो. So the way to answer anyone's point or counter anyone's point is to see the assumptions that they are taking. Okay? If I know your assumptions, then I'll be able to challenge the validity of those assumptions. Because some of those assumptions might not stand the test of time, some of those assumptions might not even be right, ever. Okay, I hope everyone can read what Amit Singh has written, right? It's a good point. It's a great point. In fact, this should be one of the tensions which should be explored in the essay. That क्या हुआ है, क्या फर्क पड़ा यार? पहले जमाने में आप अपने गुरु के पास जाते थे, ठीक है? वरना आप अपने पेरेंट्स से सीखते हो. You learn from your family, you learn from your society. Do you think they're not biased? Obviously they're biased. Don't you think you're biased because of their upbringing or their context? Obviously you are. Ab you've just outsourced. Pehle you've outsourced it to a guru, or you outsourced it to your parents or some village elder or society elder. Now you've outsourced it to technology. What's the difference? Batao. Anyone can answer. And this is how raw and real your essay brainstorming needs to get. If you're not thinking like this on like a daily level, you're losing out. देन फिर तुम लोग पता है क्या वेट कर रहे हो कि तुम्हारे जो भी कोचिंग या जो भी तुम्हारा मेंटर है ना, वो तुम्हें कुंजी पकड़ाएगा. व्हेन आई वाज इन क्लास 10th, एक एनडी नोट्स करके एक गाइड आती थी, बेसिकली एनसीईआरटी के सारे सवाल सॉल्व करके रख देते थे, तो रट लो उसको. So I know for a fact that a lot of people who are teaching, who are good in their optional teaching, they think essay is just like a cakewalk. And they tell their students that, you know what, go to ChatGPT, find out 20 intros for a particular theme, find out 20 conclusion, 20 quotes. There can be nothing more harmful than that. And by the way, इसके लिए किसी टीचर से पूछने नहीं है, इतना दिमाग तुम्हारे पास भी है. Answer the question which Amit and then I fleshed it out further. Nothing wrong, but hedge yourself with friends. Okay. No, Amit. Okay, that's not the right answer. Again, so अब पता है, when you answer such questions, part of this has to be based out of knowledge and your actual knowledge about those systems. Part of this is fatte. Basically, part of this is something which anyone can say. Part of this something is which you should know what you're doing, know what you're saying, and then you'll be able to do it better. Tech is faster and is apparently innocuous. Okay, when the way tech alters your patterns, the way tech confirms your biases, the way tech loops you into the system, it's very difficult to see because it's all happening under the hood. You don't know the algorithms the way they work. Heck, they don't even know the algorithms the way they work. No government can bind the tech companies to open up the algorithms on how they're working. So the insidiousness of tech is that because it is so much under the hood that you can't even figure out what are you up against. माँ बाप, society, देश के pros and cons तो आप समझ सकते हो. If a political leader makes a statement and you don't subscribe to that point of view, your rational mind will at first reject it. Or if you're slightly more mature, will try to understand the context in which that person is saying. But if you do not know the deep state actors which are working in your nation, the ones who you do not see on TV, the ones who you do not hear from in the rallies, so you don't even know what's getting manipulated, who's actually manipulating you. Tech is at that level. That's point number one. Point number two, the way gurus used to teach was never spoon feeding. How many of you know Jiddu Krishnamurti here or have read anything from him? Yes, no. Anyone has even heard the name of G. Krishnamurti? What's the quirk which Krishnamurti has? If you've read anything from Theosophical Society, if you've read anything from him, what's the pain, what's the messy thing in his writings? Like, what doesn't make sense? Like, I'll tell you if I don't get an answer in 10 seconds. अजीब सी उनकी अजीब सा क्वर्क है that he will never give you answers. He'll only ask, you can ask question, he'll flesh your question much better. Yeah, he'll never give you the answers. That is how gurus used to teach. They'll only indicate you in the direction in which you should pursue something. And they'll closely observe you on what you're pursuing. So, Amit ने पूछा था ना सवाल या भरत ने पूछा था, I don't remember. But that's not how tech guides you. Okay? That's the difference. So I hope you understand. Okay, so ये tensions आ गई, 3 tensions है, अब क्या करोगे? Now you will take one tension और उस tension को आप खोलोगे. This is where task comes in. Okay, now we're on the right game. So tensions आ गई. I hope you understand tensions, thinking in tensions, how interesting it is, how you can actually do it, but someone has to keep nudging you, right? You got the whole funda, right? Thinking in tensions. I hope you're agreeing with me on this, right? There is no other way to open up an essay topic in 2026 than the think in tensions philosophy. I'm going to take a silence for yes. And let's move forward. Now you open up the topic. And जैसे मैंने कहा कि your thesis has been कि your thesis would be, and thesis has to be strong. The thesis has to be that technology has genuinely opened up the game for a lot of people. A lot of people who would have otherwise gone through their life without even having an iota of who they are, because we're turning into a nuclear society, because we've lost the concept of villages and society elders are a thing of past, etc., etc. We're living almost individualistic life, having no access to guru, none of the old traditional systems. For them, technology has opened portals, right? It has kind of made the introspection available and given you some kind of a language. ठीक है, मतलब I know we trivialize people when they talk about depression as an everyday matter, but at least now people are talking about things. That's the thesis. The antithesis, however, would be all that we are discussing, that this is not self-discovery. It is anything but self-discovery. It might be, you can say that, hey, but it's en route to that. Yeah, but if you're not aware of what you're doing, it'll take you exactly to a different end. It'll end up in echo chambers, confirmation biases, and all the evils and devils of whatnot, right? That's your antithesis. And so what would be the synthesis? Tell me, what would be the synthesis for this? तो क्या करें? Synthesis मतलब, so what's the superior wisdom then? हाँ भैया, ओशो की थॉट यूज कर सकते हो तो करो, बिल्कुल करो, बट तुम्हें वो आर्ग्यूमेंट देना भी आना चाहिए ओशो का. Just don't name drop Osho and hope that you will get my numbers for name dropping. Do not drop jargons, do not drop names. And that's why it is correct when some people think that, our essays should be simple. Yes, but not trivial. Simplicity doesn't mean trivial stuff. Simplicity का मतलब ये नहीं होता कि बुद्धू बन के ऐसे लिख के आ जाओ वहाँ पे, कि बेसिक बातें करके आ जाओ और बोलो कि यार सिंपल लिखा है, जिससे किसी भी टाइप का टीचर हो. गधे नहीं है वो टीचर. कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इज व्हेन यूर जस्ट, तुम्हें ही नहीं पता तुम्हारा आर्ग्यूमेंट क्या कह रहा है. जैसे अब तुमने इस लास्ट वाले टॉपिक को मीन्स वर्सेस एंड डिबेट बना दी. अब तुम लिख के चले गए, सिंपल लिखा हो चाहे कॉम्प्लेक्स लिखा हो, फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता. योर आर्ग्यूमेंट इज रॉन्ग, विल नॉट गेट एनी मार्क्स. ठीक है, एंड दिस हैपेंस अ लॉट, बाय द वे. इट्स नॉट अ स्मॉल थिंग, इट हैपेंस अ लॉट. ओके, सो या, व्हाट इज द सिंथेसिस फॉर दिस? ये भी we've talked about this. The synthesis is this conundrum and this idea that you have to be aware to what end you're using a technology. You have to be aware of the cons of that, or the hidden impact, or the hidden side effects of that. That's the whole process of self-discovery, has friction as a crucial element. If you remove that element of friction by using something, it's of no use. You'll not discover self, you'll kind of discover a pattern of self. That would not be the self, it would be a pattern discovery. So pattern discovery से self discovery, ठीक है, और self as a word, right, वो ब्राह्मण होता है वहाँ पे इंडियन में. तो pattern discovery से self discovery के जितना जो journey है ना, it has to have friction. So you have to be judicious in using tech and all that jazz. You have to have time for yourself. Use tech for non-intrusive pattern matching, etc., etc. Now you can talk about these things in detail. Yeah. So awareness and the right way to use, ये एक जुमला है, but we have good arguments for this. Otherwise, it'll just fall flat. It'll be like, इतना simple है क्या awareness? क्योंकि नहीं है ना simple. The moment you get into the system just takes you and then won't release you. But I hope you get the idea. Now, किधर गया मेरा कीबोर्ड? अब मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ एक अच्छा इंट्रो क्या होता है इसका, ठीक है? How many of you have seen the movie Into the Wild? Yes, no? Is my thing lagging or no one has seen the movie? No. Okay. Okay, कोई बात नहीं. तो एक लर्निंग है कि थोड़े बहुत मूवी देख लो, because when you see movies now with this fresh set of lens, you'll see the tension in the movies. That will give you another way to look at life, right? So there was this movie, this is a real story. There was an American, Christopher, he went into the Alaskan wilderness, almost nothing, no GPS, nothing, no food, nothing. उसने कहा कि I'll just go and discover myself there and I'll try to make way and make do with whatever I find there. ठीक है? That's it. You know how it ended? He died. But before he died, I mean, I think he ate a mushroom which was not documented, and he did pretty well, by the way. He survived 113 days, I think. He did pretty well, and I think he died because he ate a bad mushroom or something that he shouldn't have had. And in his journal, he basically wrote that happiness is only real when it's shared. जिसका मतलब ये है, a way to interpret that would be कि self-discovery, which is finding oneness in everything, that is a self-discovery. The process can only be found when you have friction in life, when you're navigating through your daily things. Basically, थोड़ा बहुत तुम इसको ले जा सकते हो कर्म योग पे, या इसको ले जा सकते हो कि do your work, झोंक दो अपने को अपने काम में, and through that you find happiness. Okay, that friction is required. That guy had no GPS, no access to tools to make food also. So technology is not just the IT, the internet enabled thing or the hardware, whatever we know as default technology. Technology is almost everything, right? Paiya bhi kind of technology hai. That guy just went bare bones. Okay. And he paid a heavy price for it, right? He died, right? So in a way, that's a tension. That for that friction, and aisa kitni bar hota hai? People who walk the path which is lesser walked, they sometimes end up paying a heavy price for that. That's true. Now this is a great introduction. It builds the tension right in. And ये थोड़ा rhetoric है, right? That self-discovery cost him everything, and it was also completely his. Your self-discovery, as we say, is supposed to be individualistic, right? That's what I wrote. The third tension is individualistic versus a pattern match, right? You remember the third tension we wrote? The tension number 3 was curated or individual, personalized versus curated. So a way in which we tell you that, if it's your whatever second attempt or something, try joining Smash because this is more personalized mentoring. I'm not going to give you something which is a curated idea or statistically most probable thing. We're going to tell you something which you can apply and which has a better ROI for yourself, and you can get marks and get through the services. Khatam baat. Empty this loop and just go away. Okay, that's why, we charge heavy bucks. But anyway, you got this, right? So this is a good intro, and I will loop this intro back in the conclusion and you will see. Now, the thesis is what we said. The promise of technology as a tool for self-discovery is not absurd. We can call whatever we said, but it's not stupid, because in a certain day and age that we live in, it makes sense. Personality assessments, all these therapy apps, etc., they've brought in genuine psychological literacy to the millions who had none. And you can add one more point, that also given that the societal fabric is changing now, more and people are shifted to cities, and the concept of village elders is going away, and the families are becoming more nuclear than joint. Very often than not, we just find ourselves completely orphaned in terms of introspective or reflective life, right? Valid argument. And like I said in the country, third point. So the arguments हैं, ठीक है? ये argument number 1 है. And then you can, मैंने example नहीं दिया यहाँ पे, but this is an argument number 1. You can see 3 arguments, right? First argument is this. Second argument could be in a country where mental health infrastructure is thin and stigma is thick. An app that helps someone name what they're feeling is not a trivial thing. Second argument, which you can back with an example where someone talked about mental health and it wasn't given the right appeal, and then that person hanged himself, right? समझ में आ रहा है ये? Third argument is the family, the societal fabric has changed. ये सारे मैं कहाँ से ला रहा हूँ? From your GS reading. Examples and dimensions I'm getting from your basic GS and static knowledge. You need nothing. I've not even picked up any philosopher here, by the way. But I hope it's making sense. I hope you're understanding how rich this essay has become now. Everyone, yes, no. I'll just pause for a moment. Get another water bottle. भैया इतनी जहमत उठा लो कि जो तुम देख रहे हो और तुमसे येस भी नहीं निकल रहा तो कसम से यार छोड़ दो फिर ये. If I can't even extract a yes from you, if this is not even giving you that high, I don't know what will. What do I need to do to get a yes from everyone? Just amazing. There are people in this life. I have no idea, man. Okay, anyway, it's fine. So that's the thesis. And then the antithesis is what we discussed. And this is, by the way, how you can write the essay. These are like almost lines which you can paraphrase in the essay. Okay, so read through this. Something which we discussed, right? That it's assumption that self-knowledge is a destination and any path that gets you there is equally valid. ये एक अलग interesting point है, right? Friction वाला एक argument है, by the way. And second argument is it's assumed that self-knowledge or self-discovery is a destination. It's something out there. तुम्हें समझ में आ रहा है? ये एक और PYQ में आया है. Truth knows no color. Happiness is not a path. सब same ही है. It's assuming that happiness is there. Therefore, I told you happiness is the Anand, is the Satchit Anand wala Anand, or the peace, bliss. The thesis assumes that that's a destination, it's an end point. And if there's an end point, then anything which takes you there the fastest possible time is good enough. But the assumption is wrong. Are you getting it? इसमें थोड़ा बहुत तुम्हें पता होना चाहिए philosophy. Am I making sense? Because I am well aware of a lot of teachers in the market and in misguided teachers, I would say, who just trivialize this topic and just give you some nonsense to write and then they'll say कि number आ जाएंगे. नहीं आएंगे number. कतई नहीं आएंगे, बिल्कुल नहीं आएंगे और आने भी नहीं चाहिए. बिकॉज अगर आप इस लेवल पे नहीं सोच रहे हो ना, तो अगर आप बन भी गए ना ब्यूरोक्रेट, आप खराब बनोगे. आप एक खराब आईएएस ऑफिसर बनोगे, एक खराब आईएएस आईपीएस. अगर फील्ड जॉब ले ली, कोई और मिली तो फिर भी ठीक है, लेकिन अगर फील्ड जॉब ले ली, इफ यू कांट थिंक लाइक दिस, बहुत इश्यू होंगे आपको लाइफ में. ठीक है. एंड नाउ आई कैन कोट फिलोसोफर दैट सोक्रेट्स का इंटायर मेथड ही था कीप क्वेश्चनिंग द डायलेक्टिक. समवन मेंशन डायलेक्टिक आई थिंक फ्रॉम सोक्रेट्स. दैट्स द थिंग. इट्स लाइफ इज, भाई जहर पी लेना उन्हें यार, कि मैं सवाल पूछना नहीं छोड़ूंगा क्योंकि कोई पॉइंट नहीं है उस लाइफ का. उस फ्रिक्शन को अगर मेरी लाइफ से हटा दोगे ना आप, कोई पॉइंट नहीं जीने का. That's how some Dhurandhars were. When Arjun stood paralyzed in the field of that Mahabharata, the Kurukshetra field, Krishna let him empty all his pratters of apparent wise cracks. ठीक है कि भैया इससे बेटर है कि मैं चले जाता हूँ कहीं गुफा में तपस्या करने के लिए, जीत भी लूंगा तो अपनों को मार के क्या फायदा है. You know, you should listen on all the arguments, and Krishna was just listening to all these things. And then finally Krishna started. वो फ्रिक्शन रहने दिया कृष्ण ने. कृष्ण didn't just say, hey, just trust me on this. Krishna let him empty his coffers, as it, you know, in a way. Arjun said everything, whatever he had to say. Arjun was also strong, and दिमाग तो अर्जुन के पास भी था. He realized मैं बकवास कर रहा हूँ, and then finally just surrendered to Krishna. That's the whole. By the way, do you know that because of this reason, the first chapter I think of Gita is called Vishad Yog. You know what Vishad Yoga is? Every chapter of Gita is called a yoga. How come Arjun's crying and wailing and weeping and giving nonsensical arguments be called a yoga? Because it was helping him get to some place. It was helping him purge all the emotions, purge all the anti-knowledge masquerading as wisdom which was in his head, put it out in front of Krishna. And all that Krishna was doing was smiling. which by the way is another instance that you can use in one of the PYQs, which is that a smile is a vehicle of all ambiguity, something like that, right? एक question था ना PYQ में, smile is the vehicle of all ambiguities. And the way you expand on this is that smile can deceive, and smile is basically one of those things which can be interpreted in any which way. So Gita Mena, when this thing is going on, and if you read it properly, you will see there are different ways in which Krishna smiles, which is written there. There are different Sanskrit words for his smiles. कभी हंस रहे हैं, कभी मुस्कुरा रहे हैं, कभी मंद मंद मुस्कुरा रहे हैं, कभी it's a sarcasm. Lot of different ways in which he puts Arjun to his place without even opening his mouth. किसी की मेंटोस की बत्ती जली इस पे. If you're aware of these examples and these arguments, सोच सकते हो तुम्हारे essays किस level पे जाएंगे. And it's very simple. थोड़ा बहुत, now for this you need some content which we'll give it to you, but you see this is the level at which you have to perform in the paper. Okay. Yeah. Arjun had to first empty his cup. And emptying the cup is also a friction thing, right? I mean, why would I be vulnerable in front of you? That itself is a huge friction inducing activity, right? Had to be done though. Krishna had other option. He could have just shown the Virat roop to Arjun. Day 0, time khatam. If we go with the technology wala idea ki yaar 20 सवाल attempt kar, this is who you are. तो वो नहीं होता है ना उससे. It's not earned wisdom. It's a free wisdom. There is a famous, is there anyone from IIM Ahmedabad or anyone who has siblings from IIM Ahmedabad? There's a canteen or a cafe in IIM Ahmedabad called Tan Staff, which is, there ain't no such thing as free lunches. You have to earn your lunch. Great. So read more, think in tensions, start slotting whatever you read in these buckets so that you're able to recall them at a moment's notice. उस दिन पेपर में ना तुम्हारा डिफॉल्ट ब्रेन काम करना चाहिए. अभी फ्रिक्शन लग रहा हो ना यहाँ पे सब सुनने में, इट्स फाइन, इट्स वर्थ इट. 10 तारीख को when Smash essay classes will start, and what I'll try to do is I'll try to have classes almost every alternate day, so that एक momentum में you have, let's say 2-3 hour classes, and then you have like half a day to go through it, and then you do optionals and other GS papers. I think Smash PYQ daily चल रहा है, and every alternate day we meet, and within like 10 days we complete all the theory of essays. Done. Khatam. And it will be offline as well, so some of you can come offline in Delhi. Great to meet. Then we can spend some time after the class. Okay, so therefore you can end this with, no, it's paid obviously. Sab to YT pe nahi karne wala na main. That's a tension I struggle with. Do I give in to more views and more public free love, or do I also make money for my life? So it's a paid thing. But anyway, the last line of this is that friction, that apparent friction that you're removing from tech is not an obstacle. That obstacle is the way. ठीक है? So even the Stoic philosophy का एक बहुत ही आजकल का I think writer है Ryan Halliday. He's written a book called The Obstacle is the Way. I think it's picked up from Marcus Aurelius journals or something. That friction is the way. The thing that you're trying to remove from tech is actually the way to self. And there you have a mic drop phrase, and you go with that. Okay. And the synthesis क्या होगी? ये है synthesis. That this part is true. Technology cannot replicate friction. Cannot replicate friction, by the way. You know that? Have you seen any app which gives you the friction? कोई देखा है तुमने system technology enabled which gives you friction? Tell me. Just think critically. Is it ever possible for a system in tech which gives you friction to exist for maybe longer than a week or a month or a year? अगर बना भी दिया तो, is it possible to have such a system? Exactly. The whole point of these social media platforms is that you spend more and more time there. The only way in which they can make you spend more time there is if they do the thing which is called जो तुमको पसंद वही बात करेंगे, तुम्हारे हिसाब के रील्स, तुम्हारे हिसाब के पोस्ट देंगे. The whole point of maximizing your engagement, which is how they get more ad revenue, which is what increases their stakeholder price or shareholder price, is that remove every friction. That is why you have infinite scrolling. The system is by design in such a way that it will remove all frictions. If you get into that, notifications, nudges, personalized notification, telling you FOMO and all these things, that you cannot, if you're spending time outside the social media, तो या तो you're a weak person or you have a very high strong will. ठीक है, मतलब that you're able to wield it judiciously. Okay. So synthesis is that synthesis is the same which we discussed, that what you get from technology is not self-discovery. It's kind of a self-summary, kind of a self-pattern match. So you need to use these things judiciously because now you understand how tech is using this against you. So उसने एक particular part शायद तुम्हारा democratize कर दिया है, but that's it. So इसकी जो synthesis होती है, उस synthesis का framework ये है कि in a sequence of event in the space-time that we live, technology has helped for something which is democratize the vocabulary and democratize the literacy for mental health. But self-discovery is still what it used to be. That's the absolute thing. Do not get it to this level. Itna kar diya hai, which will basically make a lot of people on path to self-discovery much faster than what they used to do. Okay? That's what tech does. But the old systems have to stay in place, and a higher leader, a wisdom or leader or a nation or what, there are good countries who've done that. I think a lot of countries are coming with laws where they restrict 16-year-old के नीचे का social media use. India तो शायद नहीं कर सकती क्योंकि वरना लोग क्या करेंगे. But these two things have to come together to actually make sure that this happens in the right way. Do you get the synthesis? Do you understand the synthesis now? Things have to work in tandem. The government, the people who are in the leadership have to understand and limit the pros of technology, which indeed lie in the democratization of a certain way of looking at life because the social fabric has changed. But credit where it's due only. That's a good phrase to use. Credit where it's due. That's it. Don't be, I think Australia and they were trying to do though. Cool. Awesome. So you know this. And now we're left with a conclusion which loops back the intro. So we know that Christopher died because he underestimated what that wilderness would cost him. This is actually what self-discovery can take you through. You travel a road, you chart out a road less traveled. You don't even know what's going to go there. You genuinely don't know what's going to go there. If you go deep within yourself, you don't know what kind of demons are going to come out of yourself, right? I think someone put in a comment here that, you think of an incident in your childhood which has bothered you, put it on GPT and then, ask it to justify your present day. You can do that. And GPT or Claude or whatever will give you amazing justifications to keeping the monster that you are right now because of the hands that were dealt to you. But that's not self-discovery. That's kind of a, confirmation, attestation कि तुम सही कह रहे हो. What friends do to each other sometimes, which costs you a lot of mental health and anguish later on. But anyway, this is what truly this can cost. You travel in wilderness, you choose friction, you choose the not knowing. So you discovered something, right? Uske journals वगैरह जिस पे वो movie बनी है, you'll see beautiful thoughts coming in. You'll see all kind of thesis, antithesis, synthesis coming in as he walks through the path. ठीक है? और आपको लग रहा है कि यार फिर गलती हो गई ना उससे, then he paid the price because he died, right? Whatever he regretted, and he had no way of coming back. The very design of self-discovery basically was such that no technology, no GPS, no cars, nothing. He couldn't come back. Somehow he fended off the wilderness, but then didn't survive. आपको लग रहा है technology नहीं करने वाली. Technology is doing this in a much more insidious level. So this is a comparison which gives you a way to understand how bad tech can really get. So the tragedy of technological outsourcing, that it's quieter and more comfortable than apparently his life. Comfortable है ना, अभी तुम scroll करते रहो आराम से बैठ के पीछे 3 तकिए लगा के रात. I mean, I don't have to recreate the way in which you do that, but you understand that, right? Nobody dies from letting an algorithm tell them who they are. They simply stop becoming. किसने बोला था ना, technology eventually becomes the actual impediment in self-discovery. You can use whatever words you are, but your arguments have to be this. Your conclusion has to come like this. And then last line of your conclusion, क्योंकि whatever is valid for individual is valid for society, is valid for the larger nation. तुम democracy पे ले जाओ. A democracy that needs citizens who can question themselves, and a civil service that needs officers who can encounter the unfamiliar without flinching and should not just settle down for whatever is getting given to them at ease. So you have to learn how to live in chaos. You have to embrace chaos to even hope to get an order. और देखो टेंशन ऑनेस्टली ऐसी होती है. Just because you're trying hard for UPSC doesn't mean you'll get the rank. Okay, Mark Manson designed an app. Okay, I've not heard of this app. Even though Mark Manson, I think that guy is on YouTube, but the app is not popular. For the same reason, why I'm still getting just 34 views, even after giving you probably and arguably the best framework for essays. Because you people want pestle. I mean, not you people, but a lot of people just want pestle. That's the problem. But you understand this? This is an earned conclusion. ये समझ में आ रहा है? थोड़ा बहुत जो यूपीएससी को सुनना होता है वो भी लिख दो, बट अपने आर्ग्यूमेंट सॉलिड रखो. आर्ग्यूमेंट सॉलिड रखोगे, I mean, you'll make such a beautiful essay. And this is just me putting in blocks of intro, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and conclusion. You can fill it up with more dimensions easily. As you write more, you'll get more. Okay. What next? I am going to give you the essay microtheme document in the group, in the Telegram group. That will be given to you for free, for everyone for free. The basic listing of microthemes. We're doing it for year on year. Then we'll crunch and we'll prioritize the microthemes that you need to read for essays. Those microthemes are nothing but tensions. So they'll look something like this. So those are 25 के सारे topics लेके when we crunched them, this is what we got. ठीक है. There is a core tension in every essay. And every tension can be navigated either with the task framework, and I rather prescribe सबसे पहले तो task master कर लो, फिर paradoxes पे जाएंगे और बीच में tragedy भी होती है. There are different ways in which tensions resolve. So fundamentally, this is what we've reached here together. We've reached together, I think this. एक तो ये काम नहीं करता कभी. Is this it? We've reached this together today again. Dard hi jeevan hai, jeevan hi dard hai. That's a paradox. And I don't know how many of you know this guy or the company, The Whole Truth. How many of you know Whole Truth? The Whole Truth is a great brand which makes amazing products. This guy heads communication at The Whole Truth. देखो ये आज का है 15 मिनट पहले when I took the screenshot, June 1. This is what he wrote. I've learned to live with existential tension. Life is meaningless, and yet I choose to construct meaning through my choices and actions, through love, care, commitment, blah, blah. And that was a phase, this is another, and there'll be another. You see? That's the common refrain everywhere. That's the common story everywhere. That is why tensions is the right and the only fundamental reality of navigating through UPSC. Both literally and also PYQ devised. ठीक है? तो चलते हैं आगे. I have shared this thing. I have shared this in the Telegram group, Letter and Spirit, but I'm going to flesh it out better, and I'm going to then share it for all the years. So 2021 to 2025, I'll share a similar sheet in the Letter and Spirit group. We'll make a booklet out of it that will be available in ORN. For each of these tensions, which you can only study via understanding these subtensions, we'll give out you more literature to read. So the content will be available for free. Microthemes, we literally pioneered. No one was thinking like that, at least in an organized manner, as far as my limited understanding goes. We'll give this out for free. Each of these microthemes will be expanded like this. So action versus inaction, which is this microtheme. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. ये यहाँ पे माइक्रोथीम लिखना चाहिए था मुझे आगे एक्चुअली. इसको समझने के लिए तुम्हें ये टेंशंस, ये सब टेंशन समझनी पड़ेगी. इंटरवेंशन वर्सेस पेशेंस, कंट्रोल वर्सेस सरेंडर, डूइंग वर्सेस अलाउइंग. This is that Wu Wei or Lao Tzu philosophy of the Eastern philosophy of just letting it be, just being the witness of whatever is happening, allow it to happen, versus control, doing, karma yoga. I mean, even Gita and the other competing philosophers from Japan, they can stand in tension with each other. और लिटरल ट्रांसलेशन ऑफ गीता इज दैट कर्म करते रहो, कर्म करना मत छोड़ो, राइट? बी द डूअर. आगे चल के कृष्ण कहते हैं कि बी द डूअर, बट एक्चुअली यू जस्ट अ निमित्त मात्र, यू जस्ट अ कंडुइट फॉर व्हाट आई एम डूइंग. बट 3 लेवल हो जाते हैं. उससे बेटर है, आई थिंक द लाओ त्सू ने बोला था कि जस्ट लेट इट हैपन, allow it to happen. And haste versus timing, right? काम करना है, लेकिन do you want to do it very quickly or do you want to reflect at every stage and let the timing guide, let the sequence guide your action? So we'll think these are easy. I would request all of you to go and make your notes on this. When you make your notes on this, please make sure whatever you're reading aligns with any of these sub tensions, so that थोड़े micro notes बनेंगे ना, आप याद भी रख पाओगे. When you go and now you reflect back on the static stuff that you've read, I would say that pick up history, economy or science. जहां भी जा रहे हो, देखो कि कौन कौन सी चीजों में action versus inaction की tensions है, where sometimes the action wins, sometimes the inaction wins, so that you're able to actually build the essay nicely. ये करते जाओगे, and that's it. That's all the case there is. Do this and then 21 to 25, 8 essays every year, 8 5s of 40. They'll have some competing themes. At least a lot of these core themes will probably be recurring. A lot of these sub themes will also be recurring. As a result, we'll eventually have decent amount of content with specificity, with quotes, with historical examples. In the group, I share them as X factor pointers, but I'll kind of try to make a good compilation of that. They'll be present in the OR in laboratories as well as online stuff. बट उसको पढ़ने के अलावा ना, स्टार्ट थिंकिंग इन टेंशन, बिकॉज इफ दिस इज नॉट समथिंग यू डू इट बाय योरसेल्फ, ये भी एक गाइड कुंजी बन के रह जाएगी. दिस ऑल्सो वुड बी अ ग्लोरिफाइड गाइड बुक एंड आई डोंट वांट दैट टू हैपन टू यू. नंबर नहीं आएंगे उससे. सो देयर इज अ कोर्स, ऑफ कोर्स देयर इज अ कोर्स प्लग्ड इन नाउ. This is how we teach the Smash Mains. Essay ethics will be taught in terms of tensions. GS we've already perfected it 2 साल से. 250 और 150 वर्ड्स में तुम्हें इंट्रोबॉडिक इंक्लूजन, थीम डिमांड समझनी है, ऑल दोस थिंग्स. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट मैथ नाउ. So if you're not studying from a place which is rigorously testing you, giving you tough love on that, please go ahead and pick up someone or pick up a personal mentor, whoever you can, and get to this level of rigorous testing before you actually hit the ground. 26 और 27 are important years for you to ensure that you get a rank. इसके बाद गेम रैंडमली और बदल जाएगा. ठीक है? Is there any question that I need to answer? You can find the list in the group. So in the Telegram group of Letter and Spirit, you can Google it on whatever, you can find it and you will get that thing there. Any question और कुछ भी होगा तो I think the last I have shared there, उसमें उसके comments में just write all the comments and I'll try to see if I can do those things as well. कोई भी open-ended question हो, put it on the comment. There, like last year I give 1 free essay checking to everyone, which I'll do this year as well with my team, which will give you your blind spots. As and when you're ready with your essay copies, upload that, we'll check, we'll give you one. We'll try to map you to these level of testing, tasks, paradoxes, so that अभी जितनी जल्दी हो सके, 80 दिन से बहुत पहले, you get to these level of testing. Cool, awesome. Thank you for staying. This has been what, like 102 minutes of zapped attention from you guys, which is amazing. I wish you the absolute best. And we'll see some of you in the office. Take care.